Happy New Year. It is January 29th, 2025. And why am I sharing with you Happy New Year? What in the world? Well, it's Chinese New Year. So we're going to talk about Chinese New Year and Lunar New Year and who celebrates it and why. And with this, and I'm also going to share with you a company who's profiting. So the idea of aren't Asians all alike? People think that we are the same. And, I don't blame them. Well, yes, I do. I understand because if you grew up, when I grew up, I didn't see any representation, Asian American representation, except for Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee. And plenty of kids during the era were called Bruce because that was the only Asian people knew of. So they call kids who are boys Bruce, like my cousin. I mean, all Asian kids were called Bruce. Not as their nickname because they were that one Asian kid. But otherwise, if you think about how would non-Asian be educated about Asians? Besides Bruce Lee, 16 Candles in 1984. You have Long Duck Dong. So this is a Japanese American who is playing an actor stereotype of Long Duck Dong, who is supposed to be Chinese. And he's a weirdo and just, definitely cast as a outsider, loser, weird person. And so people think of him. And of course, guys were also called Long Duck Dong too. Yeah. So otherwise, I don't remember seeing any Asians besides being an extra. Maybe there's a prostitute or something. But otherwise, there were no Asian Americans in movies that had there weren't any role models when I was around. I'm 50 years old. I do recall there was Joy Luck Club, but that seemed like an Asian movie. And I'd have to see it now because I hardly remember it because there were subtitles. But that was a big deal because there were a number of Asian Americans in that movie. But I think they were speaking Chinese, so I didn't see them as Americans. So I have to go look at that again. And it was 25 years until the Crazy Rich Asians in 2018. I listened, I think for 6 hours, listened to responses from Asian Americans talking about Crazy Rich Asians and being represented like on the big screen, on the mainstream. And then I do want to talk about Goonies. So there was that kid, Kiwi Kwan, who played the Asian kid. And then he also was in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He played a kid too. And we didn't see him until, was it 40 or 50 years later when he was cast in Everywhere All at Once. So that's Kiwi Kwan. He's Vietnamese Chinese. And that's because there were no parts for Asians. They're just, we don't have any parts for Asians unless it's an extra and they get killed. So the idea that you may not know, you may think that Asians are all alike if the media in terms of movies and television shows was all you have to base it on, you're going to think we're all alike. And so I would like to give you more data so you have more breadth and depth about Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders because we are so very different. And so that's what I hope to lay on you. We're going to talk about Lunar New Year and Chinese New Year. And this is from my perspective, Japanese, Chinese, Swedish, fourth generation in America. And from what I know, from what I've heard, from what I've researched, and what I've seen. So take in mind that I don't have any Chinese relatives, right? It's just my dad. I never met my grandfather. And then, but I do have Japanese American relatives. And so as you think about the term Asian American, that encompasses so many people and cultures, and it is completely diverse. And that is the whole point. So for today, Year of the Snake. So this is based on the Chinese zodiac. And people who celebrate Lunar New Year, it's based on the Buddhist calendar. And the Lunar New Year It is like in China, it is the agricultural calendar. And I'm also going to refer you to a Chinese woman who speaks in English. And I don't know her name. I'm not sure if she shares it. I may be in characters, and I absolutely do not speak Chinese. And she was sharing that it is Chinese New Year, not Lunar New Year, because it is based on the agricultural calendar. It is Chinese New Year even for Vietnamese and Koreans and others, because it's giving reference to when it was made. I would say you can keep it as Happy New Year or Lunar New Year. You don't need to correct anybody, but you might want to research and learn because it's really interesting. There are so many different calendars out there. So this is a lunar solar New Year. Even though we see Lunar New Year, it actually is a lunisolar, so based on the moon and the sun. So that was new to me. And for example, she also points out that the Arabic, the Muslim calendar, that is a lunar calendar. So that is a different date. So that is a lunar, but this is lunisolar. Okay, so Happy New Year to all. Now, who celebrates Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year? Well, that is, I think in Seattle here, Chinese New Year and then Vietnamese New Year, Tet. Those are very public, and I see those. I'm also looking for it. I only learned about that Korean New Year is celebrated at this same time is because it was several years ago where there is Michelle Lee, who is Korean American. She's from Seattle, but she's in St. Louis now as a news reporter. And in her newscast, there was some small talk with the other guy. And she says, oh, we celebrate, as a Korean American, we celebrate eating dumplings, apparently. So this is how I learned about Korean Americans celebrating.
Live this morning, a news anchor from our sister station in St. Louis, KSDK, is going viral after a viewer told her to keep her Korean to herself. Now, started when Michelle Lee ended a New Year's Day food segment with the comment, I ate dumpling soup. That's what a lot of Korean people do. In a voicemail, the viewer criticized Lee for being, quote, very Asian. Listen.
Hi, this evening your Asian anchor mentioned something about being Asian and Asian people eat dumplings on New Year's Day, and kind of take offense to that, because what if one of your white anchors said, well, white people eat this on New Year's Day? I don't think it was appropriate that she said that, and she was being very Asian, and I don't know. She can keep her Korean to herself.
After Lee shared this video, she got an outpouring of support from viewers and people from across the country. She spoke about this experience on their evening news.
Instead of that being a bad thing, the hashtag very Asian got very popular, and she and a couple others created a foundation. And this foundation fundraises and gives books and education around Asian American history to schools. So nice victory story of speaking up and taking that negativity and growing it into positivity and to helping others and to also learn about Asian Americans. Yay. So it is the year of the snake. I'm going to read you. First of all, if your year of the snake, you were born in 1941, my dad is a metal snake. 53, 65, 77, 89, 2001, 2013, and of course, 2025. So the year of the snake, they are intelligent, mysterious, and strategic, and are deep thinkers, intuitive, resilient, and can be secretive and calculating. And I am a wood tiger. And it's kind of funny. I was reading it. They get themselves into hazardous situations and they live dangerously, which is funny. I do not live dangerously, but I do like to feel alive and be spontaneous because I'm such a planner. Something about the wood tiger is they do not feel like they need to be in charge. No. I like it when somebody else is in charge so I can just kind of follow. And it says they're giving and willing to do whatever is necessary to help others. I think that is Japanese or probably East Asian trait, but also is challenging because self-care for Asians, we need to be doing that. And the last half of the year, I have done self-care to refuel so I could be ready to fight and to share information. So back to Lunar New Year and Chinese New Year specifically. It's a 15-day program here, which starts today and wraps up with a Lantern Festival. So regarding Lunar New Year, who else celebrates? So I mentioned Chinese and Vietnamese and Koreans, but also Taiwanese, Singaporeans, Brunei, Malaysians, Indonesians, and Tibetans. And, something as I compare and contrast and look at commonalities between the different cultures, Japanese New Year, which is celebrated January 1, and Chinese, they both clean and they also avoid cutting your hair after the New Year. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I think there are a lot of different commonalities. And I guess that's all I can remember. We don't necessarily, my family doesn't necessarily celebrate Chinese New Year. We acknowledge it. And usually I try and find something to do. We had a dinner. My dad cooked, the Chinese guy. He cooked most of the food the other day for our family dinner. So that was fun. And went to the new TNT store from Canada and bought some things over there. So, but I wanted to note, this is not a thing I grew up with. I just want to embrace because I am quarter Chinese. I do not know much about Sweden, but I'd be pleased to, celebrate some Swedish holidays, I guess. So let's talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. So it is under attack the last few years, and so many companies, big companies, caving and cowering and so afraid that their white customers are going to rebel. And so it is very sad right now how many companies, there's only a few survivors out there who are sticking to their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. And by the way, the diversity, equity, inclusion efforts, I wouldn't say that they were robust in the first place, but at least there's a shred left. And Costco and Apple, I'm an IBM person, but Costco is a favorite to many Asians around the world. I talk about that in my programs to corporate as we sharing with them why it's important to the bottom line to be Asian inclusive. Costco I believe is their top 5 retailer in the world. And where are all the Costcos? They're where the Asians are. California, Washington State, where I'm at, and in Asia. And they are Asian inclusive. And in the ads, there are Asians, there are Hispanics, there are Black people in the ads. And Costco really accommodates and employs Asians too. They have, there was an article out called How Asian is Your Costco? And a couple of Costco's by me are pretty Asian. They have the gold bars and they have the Brandy XO and the different, I think it's a $200. It's really cool. I don't drink, but there's a set of these glass bottles. I think this one is brandy. And each bottle is like a snake or a tiger. It's zodiac signs. It's so neat. And so you will see there's also bird's nest soup. And there's some really expensive, I think bird's nest soup is like $50 or $60. I mean, there are some expensive things. And so these companies, it is a smart decision. And there was a vote last week with Costco. And their voters said, no, we reject. 98% voted to reject the anti-DEI, to review the DEI policies. So there's only 2% who are like, oh yeah, we don't like people of color and people with disabilities or veterans. 98% were standing strong that, hey, we value diversity. So this story here with Bellevue Square, this is on the east side. So I'm in Seattle, and the east side is just across the way. For me, I can get there, in 30, 40 minutes to Seattle or to the east side. And the east side is where a lot of technology is. It's the newer city compared to Seattle, and it's nicer, it's cleaner, it's just fancier. And historically, I'm from Seattle. My parents are from Seattle. My grandparents are from Seattle. I wouldn't spend much time on the east side because it's new and it's just kind of whitewashed plastic surgery, if we're talking about Kirkland, and just kind of the stereotype of pretentious, just new, no grit, no history, no diversity. Well, okay. However, during this time, after the last, 8 years or something, I like the east side now because it is clean, because it feels so much safer than Seattle. And it feels safer because a number of reasons. And it is, it's over 50% people of color. And with that, people of color, it is 39% Asian. And when we say 39% Asian, Chinese and South Asian. South Asian meaning Indian. So it's a different ball game out there. And Bellevue Square historically is an upscale mall. There's a couple other upscale, with Tiffany's and all those fancy stores I don't know the names of in that area. But Bellevue Square compared to like Alderman Mall or South Center is still pretty upscale. And they do events. They're embracing the diversity, equity, inclusion, and it is exciting. So I'm going to take you through what we saw last Saturday. And this is video. Pretty much you've just seen me talking as a talking head here, but now I'm going to share with you video of what we saw and what a cultural experience it was and the value to Bellevue Square to be Asian inclusive and for these stores and employees to reflect their audience. When we entered the mall, there was a kiosk. Usually they have displays and a map. And this one said, "Oh, look at here, take a picture." And they had the lanterns in the back and the firecrackers. And then it says, "Look here." And then it takes a picture. And then you can get your QR code and then share it with people. So how neat, already interacting with it. So you can share with your friends, "Hey, I was celebrating Lunar New Year." And as you walk on through, there's a sign for Tet that acknowledges that it is Lunar New Year for Vietnamese, and then shows these beautiful ao dais that are really colorful. And then there's a sign for Korean New Year, and then Chinese New Year. And as you walk along, there is an activity space where they're doing knot making, not like sailing knots, but actually decorative cords, like thin cords that they tie and fold into creations. And there's some instructors there showing you how to do it. This is also similar to Japanese decor, but they use these metallic wires. And then as you walk along further, there's an activity where they're doing some sort of arts and crafts. And then there are 8 ladies, senior ladies, doing calligraphy. And my dad got his name done. And so there's all these different activities throughout the store. And then there's different kiosks that are glass displays that share costuming. One is from a Chinese dynasty, and one is some other thing I can't remember. By the way, this is on video and also on my website, jolenejang.com, so you can see the pictures and the videos of what I'm discussing here. And you'll see these glass displays also that are highlighting the stores and the products that are more Lunar New Year oriented. So they have red and gold, and it's Year of the Snake. And so you will see Nordstrom. So there's a red shoe, and then there's snakeskin items, accessories is outside of Nordstrom. And then you have Tory Burch. For those of you who don't know, it's a fancy brand. They are showing also snakeskin boots and their fancy purses that are in theme. You know how I mentioned that this is a profitable type situation? They're not just saying, oh, we want to show that we're not racist against Asians. No, they are making money. A lot of people are coming out to this. I'm going to attempt to share with you what I'm seeing on the stage here. I had a front row seat, even though it was really, really crowded. And there is first level, second level, and third level of audiences looking at this pretty small stage. And so what we're going to see here is a series of probably 100 people on and off the stage. And this is Shaolin, founded in 495 AD, the Northern Wei dynasty. So, and they have Kung Fu, and it really is acrobatic. And if you see here, people, these youth, kids and teenagers, they are flying and kind of twirling, more like acrobats and doing flips. And they have these black and blue outfits with sequins and dragons, and it's really cool and exciting, kind of Cirque du Soleil like. They're obviously not as good as Cirque du Soleil, but they're like between 5 and 15 years old. So it is pretty awesome. And this guy here, he is, I don't know, he's probably between 8 and 10 years old. And he is doing a handstand, a headstand. And he's very flexible. And he's going to do this thing where, you know how you flip? You know how you do flips? But he actually does it with his head. So head flips. That looks frightening to me and very exciting. It's pretty unbelievable. So in terms of Shaolin, it was 1,500 years ago, and the type of Kung Fu is known for its fluid, explosive movements and disciplined training and deep connection to Zen Buddhism. So this gentleman here, he is an adult, and he's in all golden yellow and doing a lot of like kicking in the air and spinning, kind of not kickboxing, but sort of. And then these little two kids, this girl kind of reminds me of me. She's mixed. She must be half white. And they have these swords, probably between 5 and 8 years old. Adorable. So as you see the different styles, they are mimicking different animals for their combat strategy. So tigers, cranes, leopards, snakes, and dragons. And the types of weapons that they use, to protect their monastery, they use 18 different weapons. So they're swords, staffs, spears, and then chain whips and rope darts. And you will see all of them here, except for I don't think rope darts are represented. So, and in this is so cute. There's about 20 little kids, maybe 5 years old, and they're not their sensei, that's in Japanese. Their teacher is yelling out different commands, and they're super cute. And if you think about this is smart. So you think if there's 20 kids here, and there actually are more than that, these kids have families. So their grandparents and extended families are coming out to see one relative, one 5-year-old. And they're there for like 4 to 6 hours. They're eating, they're drinking, they're shopping, they're getting snacks, all sorts of things. So this is where the business aspect comes in. And if you multiply that times, hundreds and hundreds, that's a lot of money. So this is a wise decision. So here, this is one of my favorites. This guy, teenager, and I believe this is representing the chains, or it could be, I don't know, it could be a dart at the end. He is doing an L-sit, so sitting with straight-legged, and then he is jumping rope, but he's using his buttocks to go up and down. Can go ahead and try that. I tried that. It was pretty difficult and very intense, really exciting. I was glued to the stage. So this is an adult. He probably is one of the teachers. And so this is called like an iron body technique. So monks can break bricks, bend spears with their necks, and take full force punches without flinching. So that's what's going on here. So in the video behind me, there's 2 spears on these poles that are like 6 feet tall, and they are pointed at his neck, and he's leaning on it. And then the teenager, is holding like a brick, And then the teacher breaks a brick with a hammer on his back and forces those spears into his neck. And then the spears actually get bent. So that is quite the finale. And by the way, so movie stars like Jet Li, Johnny Yin, and Jackie Chan are all trained in Shaolin Kung Fu. And then the other portion is musical. And it's these Chinese instruments. Actually, I don't know the names of them. The artists are so graceful. There's this little kid, I don't know how old he is, but under 10. And he was phenomenal. And what the ladies are playing, they actually have these picks that are wrapped around each finger. Instead of where your nail is, it's actually on the other side. So there's 10 picks. And again, back to business, Tesla had this group, this Chinese orchestra come over to Tesla and play in their store. And so my footage is through a Tesla Cybertruck window. And it's like, wow, is there a market for Asians to buy Teslas? Oh yeah, absolutely. And so again, we think of diversity, equity, inclusion. There is money here. And when I go to Bellevue, I am always, oh, Tesla. We're driving and I'm like, oh, Tesla. So there is a market to sell Teslas to Asians. And Tesla knows that and is investing in that way. And it is a good idea. When I was watching all these performances, it was exciting. It gave me some pride. I don't know a lot about my Chinese culture. I mean, certainly I go to a lot of events and I know Chinese Americans haven't been to China, and I do study a little bit to learn more about the culture, but I don't feel like it's my culture. I was in the Miss Chinatown, but that actually made me feel like, whoa, that's definitely not my culture. But I was around a lot of old Chinese, and so I think they're probably like 80 and 90 now, and that's a different generations in America. It really varies. So when I was watching all this coolness and the discipline, and it was so good, it made me proud and so happy that the Chinese folks were proud, and there were little babies with their hats and little Chinese outfits, and there were grandpas and grandmas wearing their Chinese garb, and it was just so exciting. I think it's so important to claim your culture, and I write about that and I talk about that. And so a lot of the times I was just watching all these little kids and I was just like, oh, they're knowing their culture. And because it's very Asian on the East Side, they're not alone, and they're probably still will be made fun of, but they're not the only Asian kid there. And I think there's actually a lot of Chinese and South Asians over on the East Side in Kirkland and Redmond and all of that. So very pride building. And by the way, going to 80 or 90 different ethnic festivals a year, this Chinese crew, they run a tight show, this particular group, because I think there's probably 150 different sets on and off the stage. And with these kids from the Shaolin Kung Fu, it's like, run on, run off, run on. And I didn't even have time to clap because I was operating my camera and it was so fast. And I think each group got maybe 2 minutes or so. I mean, there was just a lot of people going. And if those who are in event planning, there's not much room to maneuver because there's so much audience. And so to put on the chairs and the music stands and to put those string instruments on, that's a lot of moving around. And yet it was done, bam, bam. If I could snap, you'd hear snap, snap, snap. So it was really well done, because I've seen plenty of other groups and different other cultures who are not organized. And I do not feel like my time is respected. In this case, absolutely. And let's talk about the financial piece again, because people are there for a long time because they're having lunch, they're taking a break, and they're looking at Lush, the soap store that is really diverse and has cool examples and things, but also the jewelry stores. And when you walk around, I often take pictures of who is working, not so much of the employees, but I take pictures of the ads. So if you walk into REI or no, Eddie Bauer, Canadian Goose, all these different companies, I say, ooh, Asian, 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 Asian. Oh, and I take pictures and I use them in presentations because they are reflecting their audience. Think about that. 39% Asian in Bellevue. And people are also coming from Redmond and Kirkland and other places too. And they have Asians represented on their walls and their employees too. Yes, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander employees. And it makes a difference. It makes me feel like, oh, I can shop there because their body size is similar to mine. And here's an example that I took a picture of this mannequin. So it's a silverish gray mannequin. It's a slim size. If you talk to any Asian men, they have to get tailored shirts or go to particular companies that are Asian made to get that Asian fit. Usually the sleeves are too long and then the body is also too long or too big in the waist. So going to these stores, when you see Asians working at them in the ads, yeah, representation. And then, in one of those glass cases I talked about, Ray-Ban has a new model that has Year of the Snake on it. And they have Asian fit also. So that's something to think, Asian fit, right? So the nose bridge is different. And then we went to Diwali last year, and it was so colorful. The entire mall had flowers and just really bright colors for the Festival of Lights in terms of this is a Hindu celebration. So many Indians, South Asians were at the mall with lots of different age groups, including adults and seniors also on the stage. So that was neat. And regarding Diwali, so I was reading up that one of the things is to buy some clothing and buy jewelry. So the stores, they actually have South Asians and Chinese working behind, in these jewelry stores. That is a smart move. Diversity, equity, inclusion is a smart move for business. And it just, when I get to walk around inside the mall, which is, right, I'm not a mall goer, but when I go to a festival, I just feel like, so much pride that the different entities, the different identities get to feel at ease and at home and get to be proud. It is just so exciting. I invite you to go to different festivals. By the way, New York State, it was in 2023 where Chinese New Year is actually a legal holiday in New York. And this is the first year they get to celebrate it. So that is exciting. So it brings awareness to the holiday. And it's neat to see. So that is our culture bite for today. So just in summary, Lunar New Year, learning about the history. It's from the Buddhist calendar and it's agricultural calendar. So today, January 29th, 2025 is Chinese New Year. But in the general sense, you can, Happy New Year, Happy Lunar New Year to be inclusive, but you can get the backstory and use it as fodder to talk about Lunar New Year and Chinese New Year and the other groups. And I do on jolenejang.com, I have a number of podcasts that I'm on as a guest podcaster and episodes from Aren't Asians All Alike. And you can also listen to and see Japanese New Year. And I shared some of my experience as a Japanese American and what that is like. And you can look at what is a mochi machine and how do you actually create the mochi and what's in it, if anything. And I was talking to my friend the other day. He's like, isn't mochi like ice cream also? And I was like, no, so what we eat over here, it's an adaptation right? Mochi is the rice, but, because ice cream is good, why not put it inside of mochi? But that's not a traditional thing. So it was last year, I went to Japan, and my parents and we went to Chinatown. We went to Yokohama, which is like a huge Chinatown. And I have a lot of footage from there, which is kind of fun to see because it's not for the tourists. It's to bring good luck to the different shop owners. So that was really exciting. So maybe we'll see that sometime. So aren't Asians all alike? Well, I hope you have more data to make your decision. My name is Jolene Jang, and I can be found at jolenejang.com. And my YouTube has a lot of videos. And unfortunately, the videos are evergreen, fortunately, unfortunately. And I wish to be kicking out a lot of different episodes on the podcast, including the correlation between cancer, lung cancer, and non-smoking Asian women, specifically Japanese American women. So you can look forward to that. Really fascinating. So talk to you soon.